We are joined by Hannu here at Autodesk University. For the listening audience, give a little bit on your background and what brought you to AU this year.
Sure. So I'm with DPR Construction. It's, I think, one of the top 10 general contractors in the United States.
Yep.
We self-perform a lot of concrete, so we like to, we pride ourselves in being a builder, not a broker. We're do a concrete, drywall, doors, frames, and hardware, and a couple other divisions. And really a big advocate for Autodesk and technology. I'm in a construction technology role at DPR. I've been doing this for almost 2 decades now. My background's been really in both construction, started kind of boots on the ground, Assistant Superintendent, jumped to the dark side, as they say, and went to work for a technology company when I came back to the United States, and ended up working at DPR Construction when we really wanted to go out and implement a lot of the technology stacks and improve the way we deliver projects. So did a short stint at Disney and then came back to DPR, and I was in charge of really their building up the virtual design and construction program, and now transitioning more into kind of integrating some of our verticals. So we're supporting pre-construction, planning and scheduling, design, VDC, MEP, and
you got a lot going on there.
Sustainability. So speaking of like bridging the gaps, right? We've got a lot of silos, and we're really focusing on trying to integrate our work and get more consistency and predictability in how we operate.
Yeah. So how's that journey been of starting to bridge those gaps, tear down those silos, and get people talking that might ordinarily not interface?
Yeah. So it's hard. I mean, our industry is naturally siloed, just amongst our different disciplines that are working on projects.
Sure.
And it's hard enough just within your own organization, because we're all set up as kind of different functional work groups, focusing on different processes within the construction project life cycle. So it's naturally disjointed. I think we're starting to see and recognize that it's creating inefficiencies for us. And then, we've been on this journey for 2 or 3 years now, just going, hey, we really got to integrate how we do work and put some strategies and some focus around how we start better coordinating, integrating workflows left of the line, some planning it right strategies, setting up these jobs for success, and not only leveraging technology to do that, but really bringing people together and make sure we are aligned on the plan, and then having a good plan to execute that and a good strategy to how to protect that plan.
How do you go about the communication plan to get people not only aware of the plan, but bought in, and then handling that change management? Because it's a different mindset that they have to operate in. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just getting alignment early on with everybody who's involved on a project. There's some really just fundamental things. You got to get plan alignment on customer expectations, right? If we're just talking specifically projects, and then looking at what is really the delivery method going to be, looking at the different construction methods, and then looking at how are we really going to set up this job for success, whether it's managing the design, creating a strategy for logistics and material deliveries, sequence and flow of the work, and really getting to, I think, what we call data-driven planning is really starting to crunch the information on like what is really the optimal flow and sequence for this work, taking into account the different challenges that we might have, and how do we really put a good strategy together. Yeah.
Have there been any kind of unexpected challenges or hurdles that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the biggest challenge we see in our industry is every job is unique, right? Every job is different. We don't go and build something over and over and over again like the manufacturing industry does. I think everybody's seen that curve of like how manufacturing and like our, agriculture and all these other different industries are like on this incredible like productivity line, and I think the construction one is always like flat and stagnant, if anything else going down, and the reality is just like what we do is really hard. Every single job you're bringing in like multiple disciplines that are contributing to the value chain of delivering this job, all the way from the designer down to really the last person who's putting in the work in the field. And so that kind of alignment starts super early. And there are just so many obstacles along the way, and people need to get aligned on what is it we're building, what does it need to cost, what's the schedule we need to deliver that. And I think we struggle as an industry, especially contractors, in really helping bring that sort of collaboration mentality in early and being engaged early. And we're a big proponent of just getting involved early on in the design process so that we can work with our design partners and be a contributing factor in the ultimate outcome of that design, and get alignment early, control as much as we can of that sort of kind of the outcome, and take that on with bringing on right people at the right time.
There's some interesting dynamics at play in the construction industry right now, because there is that maybe greater awareness of the need to bring people together earlier on. There's the convergence of manufacturing and construction coming in while maintaining the uniqueness of the buildings, and that construction will never truly be a replica of manufacturing principles, but how do you pull those in to help create more efficiency in construction? How do you see all those at play when there's some synergy there, but there's a lot of not synergy there?
Yeah, I think I think we're seeing, one of the biggest things I think that's driving like just modular construction and prefabrication, we've got a lot of challenges in the labor, lack of labor, actually, skilled labor to go and put the work in. And so what that alignment needs to happen early on, is if that we've got strategies to try to streamline delivery methods. You can't do it in the traditional ways, and that synergy just does not exist today. It's like that misalignment and misunderstanding around how involved you have to be early on in the design process in order to actually execute some of that work in a much more efficient way. You have to have that concept of building with that modular or prefabrication, or buildings as products from a get-go. You can't introduce that concept too late in the process when the design's already completed.
Yeah.
Right? So
not without a big expense.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's like it's something that's got to give, right? So I think you got to kind of get those sort of strategies aligned early, and make sure that you've got not only buy-in from the client on this is the right approach, is the right strategy, but making sure that the design team is allowing us to be part of that conversation early, and incorporate some of those builder concept, constructability methods, means and methods early on in the process.
So where's the technology piece? How does that factor in, not only to make the office more efficient, but going all the way down to the field and making sure everybody's on the same page there? Yeah,
I think I feel like we're kind of on this sort of just now, like I'm surprised it's just now, but we thought BIM was going to revolutionize how we do this business 20 years ago. And we're still trying to figure out how to really optimize that workflow from a data-centric and model-driven design approach to get that information really coordinated and really completed, so that we can go execute that first. The prototype really, and go execute it in the field. We've got when you look at really building information modeling in the context of really what Autodesk provides, right? It's we've got all the technology and the tool stacks to do the work. The biggest obstacle still seems to be on how we collaborate with those tools, and just being able to really identify who are all the people in the value chain of creating that design and completing that design, and who's contributing to what part of that process, and creating clear steps and phases of work, and sequencing the work and the design delivery in a way that it supports construction, and we can get everybody to contribute into that construction and the design delivery process, with bringing in their really builder knowledge to complete that information. And I still truly believe, I think the model-based approach is the best way to contribute to that, versus everybody creating their content in a silo with a 2D deliverable in mind. And then we're trying to smash it all together in the end to figure out what actually works and what doesn't work, versus collaboratively creating that content, identifying what part of that building actually fits together and what works and what doesn't work, and kind of fixing through those details, and then producing the content and the deliverables so that we don't have to go through this change order process in the end to tweak and change the design later on, which just creates inconsistency, unpredictability, creates cost delays, schedule impacts, so cost impacts and schedule delays in the field. So the process is broken ultimately, I think, in how we deliver projects. We've got all the tools to do it right, but we just haven't tweaked our delivery methods to allow for the technology and the tools to give us the best results.
Yeah. So what does that ideal process look like, factoring in that we have to embrace the technology because we have a huge labor shortage? How does the ideal process look with the interoperability coming in to really connect all those data points together to be able to leverage in and make the data useful?
Well, I think so. Some of the feedback we've been also giving Autodesk is like Autodesk has all the technology tool stacks to help us really integrate our workflows. We got to get early just consensus alignment on the schedule and milestones, the different deliverables. I think we're too probably broadly focused on these large traditional SD, DD, CD milestones, and we really need to probably break that down further into incremental deliverables and build like a design packaging strategy based on scope and incremental sort of milestones to deliver that in order to get design to a state where it can be handed over to our trade partners to then coordinate. And so there's this sort of a lineage of design to procurement to make sure that we can get our trade partners on board, be able to coordinate the scope, and then be able to either release or things for fabrication or buy the materials if there's long lead times, but then also release information to the field for it to be built on time. So there's a lot of these different touch points that have to line up perfectly.
Right. And
if something in the value chain is delayed, it sort of impacts everything downstream. And unfortunately, what typically ends up happening is we design a lot of content without the input of folks, and then we price it and we tell the designer or the owner that, hey, it's over budget. They have to go redesign something. And what that does, it just sort of crunches the time we have to coordinate the design. And you have this design and construction overlap that happens that just ends up creating chaos because we don't have completed information to deliver to the field on time.
What's the first domino that needs to fall to create the ideal state?
Well, I think we just need to get, we need to also understand that design is iterative and as it should be. Right, because I mean, I think defining really the role of for the architect is to create a functional and the design partners to create a high performing building, ideally something that is looks great as well. But then there's the devil's in the details, right? So it's like, how do we actually put a lot of those different components together to bring it to life and make sure that it all fits and that you're not having to sacrifice on quality or performance. That requires an incredible amount of collaboration in order to get that sort of across the finish line. So I think the biggest, probably the domino that needs to fall is just, I think, redefining some of our contracts as well. There's a lot of just misunderstanding and misalignment on what the model is and what it isn't. And how could that become more of a contractual deliverable, not replace contract drawings per se, but I think we all recognize that these contract drawings are created from the model, but then we diminish the value or the importance of the model in the process. So I think there's a lot of things that need to happen there. There's I think some great efforts happening nationally with the National Institute of Building Sciences. Johnny Fortune and that team is building some national BIM standards and getting some consistency in how we execute some projects, some standards. And I think once those things are set in place and we understand that, hey, we have to adapt as an industry. We need to sort of adopt these modern methods of construction. We can't continue to use the old ways and old traditional methods of building. We've got to adapt and to redefine what does, 21st century construction delivery really look like, and just get on the same page. Like, we're in this digital revolution. Digital transformation is happening across the board, but we haven't adapted our delivery methods to support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. So one of the big new changes, not necessarily a new change, but a development, especially this week, is around AI and Autodesk's announcement of Autodesk AI. How does that factor into this accelerated digital transformation?
I think it's going to be interesting in many ways. I'm hoping that generally it'll probably shorten a little bit of the time to create design, because from my experience and what I've heard from a lot of my colleagues in the industry, it's like a lot of it is obviously rules and math and things like that, things that you can train an AI system to do, and obviously you need kind of a hybrid approach, right? You can't just like put it in and tell it to give you a design. You have to validate it, but I think it's just the iterations that we'll be able to go through to optimize design. It'll be significantly improved, and hopefully the time to create I think a functional design will also cut down significantly, so that we have more time, I think, to really vet and collaborate on the constructability components of that design, not just the performance functions, right? The performance criteria and the specifications that typically are driven by these kind of design professionals, right? So if we can nail that down and be able to put some parameters around that using some of the AI technology and leveraging the model and using the information, the I in BIM, in order to optimize that, I think it'll be a big game changer for our industry.
How quickly do you think the industry will embrace AI?
I don't think they have a choice, right? It's just it really is gonna come at a pace where we're gonna have to adapt very quickly, and figure out how can we make that work to our advantage versus trying to reject that. It'll be interesting to see how the industry does. I mean, sometimes I joke that construction technology is a bit of an oxymoron in our industry. We tend to resist things, so we tend to be very skeptical of things that are new. That, I'm sure there'll be some lawyer who'll identify all these risk factors that are associated with AI, and we'll have some clauses in our contracts that'll prevent it from being used. And but I think we'll be able to work around it, hopefully, and be able to really clearly create some boundaries of what it is and what it isn't, and how can it really help, I think, help us really crunch an enormous amount of information in a much quicker and faster way to help people make more informed decisions.
I like it. What industry gap do you think needs to be solved in the next calendar year?
Well, I think there's still an incredible disconnect between what's happening, the transformation that's happening in the office, and how do we get that to the field in a much more consumable way. A lot of the folks that are still putting the work in place don't necessarily have access to the technology, right? I mean, we all walk around with our mobile phones, but a lot of times the information is not optimized to be consumed at that kind of a large scale. And quite honestly, I mean, we've got plenty of applications. There's millions of apps out there that do various different portions of the workflow and the process, but it's still quite disconnected. But I think the biggest gap to solve there is just how do we get some of this sort of the work product, the work packages, the coordinated information to the field in a much more streamlined way. Just-in-time delivery, whether it's 2D or 3D deliverables, and being able to consume that in some kind of a format that is easy to navigate. I think is an area where we need to sort of continue to evolve. So increasing the training, the skills, the aptitude really of the workforce. And by doing that, hopefully they'll recognize that it's just more rewarding to do the work. It'll be faster, easier, and hopefully we'll be able to attract some new talent into the industry, because there's a lot of new technology that's coming, and even robotics that are integrating from the information that we're creating, that it's a unique new skill set that's being sort of transformed into the workforce.
Yeah. How are you going about getting the field excited and embracing the technology, and moving from just being users of it to maybe even champions of the technology?
Well, I mean, a lot of times it's just having that visual medium, and being able to communicate what we are building visually, I think is extremely helpful. We do that today a lot of times in the trailers and in the offices. We've got large mechanisms and TVs there that we can pull up information very quickly and show what we're building. I think we still probably need to figure out, how do we get some of these things integrated into the hands of folks that are out there in the field, whether it's, we saw some of the technologies here like hard hats and AR, and how could something like that become much more prominent in the workforce? Yeah. So that they can visually see what they're supposed to build in 3D context, versus having to decipher all that information from 2D plans. So I think it's exciting to see where some of this technology will go. We've had some hardware challenges and limitations, but I don't think we're too far off from having some of that be hopefully changing in how we build.
Yeah, I feel like, for so long there was so much hype around a lot of that tech, but now it seems that the reality is starting to catch up to the hype, and it's being implemented now in real use cases across the board, which is exciting.
Yeah, I generally think, like, in the next 5 to 10 years, I think there's going to be significant advancements in technology for construction. I'm hoping. We've been waiting for this for quite some time in our industry. There's some fundamentals we still got to get right, but I think there generally are going to be some incredible enhancements and improvements that hopefully make it also easier for the workforce to go and execute.
Yeah. So as we start to land the plane here, we're at Autodesk University. It's been dubbed the Design and Make Conference. What's the state of design and make in your mind?
I think we're seeing. I think what I'm starting to see in the industry, I think we're recognizing that, hey, in order for us to be able to really produce something and be able to do it right, we're seeing new contractual delivery methods like progressive design build that ultimately allow us to do some of those things I was talking about earlier, to collaborate and work together in order to really come up with that optimized design. And being able to prototype it and deliver it in a much more streamlined and optimized fashion. We've got now, direct integrations into manufacturing and offsite construction from the models and the design, and in order to produce that offsite, to basically then deliver those to the field. So I think the state of our industry, I think I'm just always an optimist. There's so much room for improvement. I'd like to say that it's better. It's always better than it was previous year. We're always making progress. The progress could certainly be faster in our industry, but I think we're at a cusp now that if we're not adapting, if there's now really, I think we were the early adopters on the bleeding edge, and now I think the rest of the laggards are coming along and realizing that this is here to stay, and that it's not a fad. Yeah.
Nice. A couple rapid fire questions for you. When I say the phrase modeling the future, what does that look like to you?
Modeling the future?
Modeling the future.
Well, hopefully, what I'd like to see is this sort of the continuous evolution of detail. I'd like to see these models. We talk about different levels of LOD, level of detail, 200, 300, 400. I really would love it to become a true representation of what we are going to go and build. So every single thing is in the model, so that inherent trust in that model is increasing, so we can get much more accurate information out of there, be able to do everything, including estimating and planning, directly out of the model. Yeah. Because we will have these detailed essentially, hate to use this, I'm going to get a slack for this, using digital twins. It's like a big joke, but like that it's used so often, but you know, a true representation of what that prototype of what's going to get built.
Yeah, nice. One of the things that we talk a lot about on Bridging the Gap is around innovation. What does innovation mean to you?
Innovation, we actually use that term a lot in our company. Innovation to me is, if I was really make it succinct, it's innovation with a purpose. Not just chasing shiny new objects and things that are, you know, the cool factor, but something that is truly solving a particular problem, that is increasing quality, financial results or schedule outcomes, and really making a positive impact in how we build, whether that is from the traditional cost and schedule, or just from a human capital meeting. We can do it faster, and we don't have to work overtime and work so hard.
Nice. How do people find out more information and connect with you?
Well, I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn, Hannu Lindberg on LinkedIn. Feel free to email me at hannul@dpr.com. Happy to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Last question for you. If I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing in the industry, what would you pick to innovate?
What would I pick to innovate? That's a great question. So I haven't thought about that. What was the one thing that I would innovate? I mean, I think the easy answer is probably our contracts, right? And how we try to shed risk today versus trying to set things up for a more collaborative approach from the get-go. I think I would get some of those contractual barriers out of the way.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic to dive into, because everybody talks about the collaboration, but then the contracts are set up to not collaborate.
Exactly.
So the incentives are totally misaligned there.
That's absolutely right.
Well, Hannu, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, appreciate it.